there is a gang of soldiers, Israeli soldiers in Gaza, who set their dog loose on a Palestinian man who's autistic and had Down syndrome and was 24 years old, and his name was Muhammad Bahar. Okay? And this is reported now in a million outlets. You can find it everywhere. It's even the BBC had to cover it. But the headline, of course, is very, it downplays the whole thing. This is Muhammad Bahar, okay? I'm going to read to you from the article. And, you can see how awful this is. The Israeli military has admitted that a Palestinian man with Down syndrome who was attacked by an army dog in Gaza was left on his own by soldiers after his family had been ordered to leave. Muhammad Bahar was found dead by his family a week later. Responding to the BBC, the Israeli army said the troops left Muhammad Bahar alone because soldiers injured in a rocket attack needed their help. Okay, so you left him to die. That's what you did. So this is what happened. On June 27, the Israelis came to his neighborhood, okay, and they went into their house. And, So on 3rd of July, the IDF raided their house on Nazaz Street. His mother said there were several dozen soldiers with a combat dog. Animals used to find Hamas fighters. They got to throw in the word Hamas, to justify murdering people with Down syndrome. So his mother heard them, quote, breaking in and smashing everything. And then they arrived with the dog. Referring to Muhammad, she says, I told them that he's disabled. Have mercy on him. He's disabled. Keep the dog away from him. Then she saw the animal attack Muhammad. The dog attacked him, biting his chest, then his hand. Muhammad didn't speak, only muttering, no, no, no. The dog bit his arm and the blood was shed. I wanted to go get him, but I couldn't. No one could get to him. And he was patting the dog's head, saying, enough, my dear, enough. In the end, he relaxed his hand and the dog started tearing at him while he was bleeding. At this point, says Nabila, the soldiers took the young man into another room and away from the dog. They tried to treat his wounds. He was now in the care of combat soldiers who had come from the streets where Hamas. The sentence is he was now in the quote-unquote care, or rather mistreatment, of people who just let a fucking dog maul him. Who wrote this shit? I want to hear what the mother said, not your fucking shit about where they were. I don't give a shit if they were whoring in a bar outside or on Mars. They let the dog maul him. Do you fucking understand that? They took him, put him in a separate room, and locked the door. So they let the dog tear him to shreds and then dumped him in a room and locked the door. We wanted to see what happened to him. We wanted to see Muhammad, to see what had become of him. They told us to be quiet and aimed their guns at us. So they just want to know what's happening with their family member who is autistic and has Down syndrome and has just been mauled. And the response from the Israelis is to point rifles in their faces. But they're the most moral army in the world, remember. They said, we will bring a military doctor to treat him. At one point, according to Nebula, a military doctor arrived and went into the room where Muhammad was lying. Muhammad's niece, who is 11, described how the family pleaded with soldiers to help him. We told them Muhammad was not well, but they kept saying he was fine. After several hours, it is not clear how many, the family was ordered at gunpoint to leave, leaving Muhammad behind with the soldiers. There were pleas, there were cries. 2 of his brothers were arrested by the army. They have still not been released. The rest of the family found shelter in a bombed-out building. So imagine these Israelis come into your house. In front of you, they let a dog maul your brother to death. And they then put him in a separate room where you can't see him or help him. And then when you try, they try to kick you out of your own house. And when you refuse because you want to take care of your brother, they arrest you and put you in jail for weeks, for months. That was on June 3rd, right? June 3rd, July 3rd, I forget the date. It's July. So for weeks now, right? You're put in jail because you don't want your brother to be mauled to death by a dog. Wow. They returned a week later to a site that haunts Muhammad's brother Jibril. He produces his mobile phone and shows our cameraman a video of the scene. Muhammad's body is lying on the floor. There is blood around him and a tourniquet on his arm. This was most probably used to stop heavy bleeding from his upper arm. Jibril points to a gaze used to bandage a wound and remarks on the blood that clotted after the tourniquet was applied. They were trying to stop the bleeding, then they left him without stitches or care. Just, these basic first aid measures. Of course, as you can see, Muhammad was dead for a period of time already because he was abandoned. We thought he wasn't at home, but it turned out he had been bleeding and left alone at home all this time. Of course, the army left him. And then the BBC write, it is not clear what exact injury caused Muhammad's death. I mean, this makes me want to quit journalism, really. So there, you see a video of his body. The Israeli army tells you our dog mauled him. The family saw everything, and you don't know what killed him. Maybe it was a nuclear missile. I don't know. What do you think? How can you write? This is criminal. This is literally criminal, this sentence. You are covering up a fucking gang murder with an army dog. Literally criminal to write this. It's not clear. Jesus Christ. Muhammad was buried shortly after the family found him in an alley between houses because it was too dangerous to take the corpse to the mortuary or graveyard. There was no post-mortem and no certificate of death. Buried in an alley. When you read these kinds of things, there is no response except fuck the West. There is no response. The way that they killed him and the fact that he was buried, in an alley without a death certificate, right? So, I mean, again, all of it is really horrific. It's really horrific, and they want to do this in order to terrify people and make us feel hopeless and that sort of thing. And yes, obviously, it's awful that this happened to him. On the contrary, I'm the one. I'm the first to say it. And the problem is they do this constantly to disabled people or people who are in need of who have special needs or who have people that care for them. It's really sadistic. This happened about 1 week before George Floyd was killed. All right. Iyad Hala was 32 years old, and they shot him in the chest 3 times with an M16. So they executed him in Jerusalem after they had already shot him in the leg and cornered him in a garbage room. Okay, so he is autistic, and he goes to a special needs school, and he didn't understand what the soldier or the border police was barking at him. So again, this is not Israeli army, it's Israeli border police. Same crap, same oppression. So they thought that he is a quote unquote terrorist. Again, this is an autistic man. He has, it's like a child. He has no clue what the guy's asking him. He has, an ID card that says he's disabled, and then he starts running and he gets shot in the leg. And then they catch up with him, and his teacher is there, and the teacher tells them he is autistic. He is autistic. And then they just execute him. They execute him. And then the cameras in the alley magically have no footage. They don't work. The soldier is tried. The policeman is tried and not found guilty. And then they raid his family's house. Again, this is an autistic man. And they raid the Shin Bet, which is like the FBI in Israel. raid his family's home the same day that he's killed to try and find dirt on him, right? So they just want to like, they just want to show that he's a terrorist. He's an autistic man. And that's how low they stoop. And of course they find nothing. And then they withhold his body on top of it, right? That's another thing Israelis love to do. They will withhold your body. Yes. Because they don't want people coming out for a funeral and being rightfully outraged at things like this. Okay? So the Israelis have a history, and I've done threads, videos about this, of how they murder, they execute disabled Palestinians. They're told that they're disabled. They understand what's going on, and they still kill them. They murder them. They shoot them in the stomach, and in the chest, whatever. Execution, straight up execution. So, and again, like I said, I remember covering this because no one covered it. No one covered this. To this day, you'll hear about the Israeli victims, but you'll never hear about Iyad Halal. Too inconvenient, right? And the Israelis, they always have a reason. It's always okay for them to murder people. There's always a justification that makes it okay, right? And they have a democracy, right? So don't worry, they'll go and try the policeman, and then he'll be found not guilty and paid, by the way, during the trial. That's great. So there you go. They killed Iyad Halal in 2020. Yeah. Also in May, June. And now they mauled Muhammad Bahar to death with a dog in Gaza. Very, very sad, very, very sad story. And I mean, the headlines that you see, they're not appropriate for this stuff. What the BBC said: Gaza man with Down syndrome attacked by IDF dog and left to die. Before, they had something else, a different title, with lonely or something like that, right? So it was, I think they deleted it. They deleted it afterwards, and they called it the lonely death. So before, this same article was called the lonely death of a Gaza man with Down syndrome. What does that mean? There was someone in Gaza 200 years ago who just died, in a house. Well, what does that mean? This headline means nothing. Incomprehensible. The lonely death of Gaza man with Down syndrome. Out of all the things that happen in this attack, I mean, I don't even know what to call it. It's not an execution. It's not a murder. It's something worse. We have to invent new words to describe what Israel does because it's so barbaric. It's so Israeli, right? It's so Israeli. It's so Zionist. So again, they changed it and deleted the tweets and everything because of people, being outraged on Twitter, and came up with this, which is, I mean, a bit better. But they always add this thing at the end, like mother tells BBC, like as if it's questionable, like the BBC doesn't know, even though it's their fucking job to report the news and investigate things. But, the mother said so. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, And they will always do this with anything that makes the United States or Israel or the UK look bad. Every single headline. It will have a comma at the end, blah, blah, blah says, spokesman says, right? When Israel bombs Syria, for example, they'll say Israeli jets bombed Damascus, Syria regime says, or Syria says, like as if, it's questionable. We don't know. Okay, then go find another fucking job. Why do you work in news if you don't know? It's your job to know. I mean, this is really just so despicable and so disgusting. They are so low. How can you sit at a computer and like type this out and then agree to have this headline? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Really, this is sickening. Really sickening. Absolutely sickening. No one is even denying it. Like the Israeli army is saying, yes, the dog mauled him. Why is it mother says? Why do you even have to add this? God, I don't know what to say. I mean, and even their video evidence, no, not enough. The mother says. I mean, okay. I mean, I said this, like, this stuff makes me want to quit journalism. Actually, it's why I do journalism, because I can't accept reading this and just letting this slide and, like this being the only thing out there. No, screw you. It's vile. It's vile how they lie. It's unbelievable. This is one of the most gruesome murders and slaughters I've ever read, I've ever heard of. And you know, it's like, you know, we'll throw a few headlines out there and you know, cloud what happened and mention Hamas. What does Hamas have to do with any of this? There's not one element in this entire story that has anything to do with politics or with Hamas. None. The Israelis are not even claiming that, oh, there was Hamas in the house. They're not even bothering to say that. There is no connection, no relation to Hamas in any capacity whatsoever. But they still throw it in there. You know, it's like a smoke and mirrors. You know, they want to distract you. Like, oh, the Israelis, you know, they were fighting Hamas. So, you know, they just let the dog maul someone to death. You know, that's what happens when you're fighting Hamas. Unbelievable, really. Scum. The BBC are truly scum. Scum. Let me perhaps end on a positive note, because we're not going to allow the Israelis to get away with insulting Muhammad's memory or making us feel hopeless and you know, depressed. Because what is going to happen? I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. One day we're going to find his body. We're going to exhume him and give him a proper burial in a mausoleum as a martyr, because he is a martyr. And we're going to have charities in his name for children who are autistic or who are suffering from Down syndrome. And speaking of which, this is a charity in Gaza, and you guys have been instrumental in helping it grow. Look at this fundraiser. Look what you have done. You took this from 6,000 to 84,000. And they're almost at their goal. And this is precisely for children in Gaza with special needs. Amazing. And also for displaced children. So really, thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, and thank you from them, because these kids they're receiving the aid directly. I know the organizer. She's a journalist herself from Gaza. I met her, and you know, they're getting wheelchairs. They're getting everything they need thanks to you guys. So if you can donate, please do it for Muhammad. Please do it for these kids. And this is the first charity. I'll put it in the chat or GoFundMe rather. And then there are 2 additional charities, just you know, in general Christian charities in Palestine. DSPR.org. I'll also put that in the chat. And the other one is shepherd-society.org. So, you know, pick whichever you want. I know they're reliable, and they will get to people in Palestine, and you know, they appreciate it immensely. So yeah, we're not gonna let the Israelis, you know, insult the memory of Muhammad Bahar or Iyad Halla. On the contrary, I think we should celebrate them. I think we should have hospitals named after them. I think we should have charities named after them. We should have schools named after them. These people are martyrs. They you know, they are. If you listen to their mothers describe how they were, Iyad Halla was 32, but his mother said he was like a 7-year-old mentally, you know? When it comes to Muhammad, I believe his mother said he was like a 1-year-old, you know? He couldn't even eat or you know, drink by himself. And he was petting the dog when it killed him. He didn't understand what the dog was doing. He called it, you know, my dear, like Habibi. That's how innocent he was. Can you imagine? So it's really sad, but at the same time, I mean, there's something. It's like they are such an opposite and a contrast to the Israelis. They show us what good humans look like, and I think that's positive. You know what I mean? I think that's because the Israelis want you to think the world is horrific, and it's a reflection of them, and they get their way, and everything has to, you know, be under their boots. No, I disagree. On the contrary, and I think it's people like Iyad, people like Muhammad, and all these children in Gaza. Remember, just I'm speaking now generally about all children, not just people that are children that have disabilities or special needs. 20,000 children missing. So, you know, there's a special care that needs to be given to children, because the idea behind this campaign and all of the campaigns is to obliterate the future of the Palestinians. If you take away the children, there is no future. And you know, you've had Israeli politicians say things like this decades and decades and decades ago, you know, break their bones and just horrific things. So, you know, we're going to do everything to combat that. We're going to do everything to combat that. They want to fight children with disabilities. We're going to support them with money, with donations, with coverage, with anything we can do, you know? And that goes for the whole cause, the whole Palestinian cause. It's just incredible that organizations and NGOs that represent people who are autistic or who have Down syndrome, why aren't they speaking up about this? I mean, this is like, forget, you don't have to be a Palestinian, or you know, you don't have any relation or any political knowledge to be against things like this. Let us recap. A gang of Israeli terrorists with a dog barged into a Palestinian home in Gaza. They set a dog loose on Muhammad, who is autistic and has Down syndrome and can't even eat by himself. He can't even drink by alone. Okay? And this is after being told that he is autistic and disabled. They still set the dog loose. The dog mauled him. They took him into a separate room. They brought a doctor, supposedly, to treat him, and then he left him to bleed to death in the room, and then arrested the brothers, two of his brothers, for trying to help, and forced the family to leave at gunpoint. Wow. And then he was buried in an alley because the Israelis are bombing and you can't go to the graveyard or the mortuary or the morgue. I mean, this doesn't even have a death certificate. I mean, you know, Israel can shove its right to exist up its fucking ass. That is the conclusion. There is nothing else to say. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. You know, telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it, because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.